Living a pleasure-led life, to me, doesn't mean that you are avoiding the opposite. It doesn't mean you're avoiding pain or discomfort. In fact, I would say or argue that living a pleasure-led life means you really embrace it all.
I'm Rachel, and you're listening to the Owning Your Sexual Self podcast. Elan, thank you so much for coming on to the show today. I'm very excited to have you.
Me too. Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, where are you from? You're not local to me.
No, I am in San Diego, California. So
Oh,
in the warm weather.
I'm one, very jealous of that. And two, I have a ton of connections, people in the sex coaching industry also within San Diego. So we'll have to talk offline after this, and I'd love to connect you with them because
Oh,
they're people, women doing great work.
yeah, absolutely.
Hey, awesome. So you work specifically with, do you mainly work with women or do you work with men and couples too, or is it primarily women?
So my work is primarily with women, and I do work with just all gender in general. But what I've noted is through my personal experience, I find it easier to connect with women. Um, but I think this work is so important for everybody on the planet as we navigate learning a different way to approach sexuality. So,
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm very excited for our conversation today to talk into more about how to live that pleasure-filled life. And I'm sure that's going to include both sexuality and not sexual related things. And also you mentioned like having some shame that you had to work through within your journey as a woman, specifically around religion and being able to navigate your religion and still honor that and be respectful of that while exploring your sexuality. And so, yeah, I'm excited. This is something that comes up a lot for people. And so I'm really happy to get into your story and hear what your experience has been.
yeah, yeah. So, just to give you like a little context of my background and my upbringing, I grew up as an only child. And so, with that, I was very sheltered and I was a very shy kid. Um, Also, in conjunction with that, I had parents, well, specifically a parent who was a micromanager. My father had basically, he was diagnosed with like every anxiety disorder under the sun, and throw in some depression and some OCD in there. And he was the stay at home parent. So I really learned and picked up a lot from his approach to raising me. And I think from there, it really just kind of snowballed. It became like a whole thing. I also grew up in a Christian household. Ironically, my parents were not very religious, but they would always force me to go to church because they thought we just want to give her a good life and allow
Oh,
her to be raised with good morals and ethics and all of that. Um, so I really grew up in that myself. And with that, I'll talk more about that as we go on. But as a result from all of these, the ways that I was raised, you know, having to go to school and being good for my teachers and all this stuff, I learned how to be the best good girl on the planet. And I learned how to be a great people pleaser. I learned how to really silence my own voice and my own opinions to keep the peace and to be the harmonizer. And also just like full on suppression with my own self expression in general. I didn't even know what that was like because I never was given the chance as a young kid to explore, to adventure, to set sail into the unknown because of my dad, who was such a micromanager. At every moment, it was like, don't do this because all these bad things are going to happen. Or make sure you're doing this and getting straight A's so you can be a doctor and go to medical school and da 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 da. Like, the classic story. So it started to just have that effect as I grew older, grew into my adult years, because that was just, I wasn't, in personal development at that point. So I was just living my life. It was cascading. And as I got older and into, more mature relationships, I noticed that I started to, like, every romantic relationship I had, toward the end, I would notice myself feeling like I couldn't be myself, and just coming to the conclusion that that person and I were not a good fit because I want to go in this direction and they want to go in that direction. And there's so many layers to that. Fear of intimacy, ultimately, not knowing how to communicate, and coming to these like big, big statements of like, okay, well, let's just break up because we clearly are not in alignment. And then also just like faking orgasms, not being myself, not even knowing that I could orgasm with a partner, not knowing that I could actually experience pleasure with anybody, thinking that I was broken. So all of these elements in my life, in my religious upbringing, in my parent family dynamic, all had contributed to these elements as an adult. And it wasn't until my mid 20s that I started to actually like analyze, hey, what's going on here? Something's amiss. I'm feeling a lot of anxiety. I'm feeling depressed. I'm having a lot of worthiness issues pop up in my life, even though I'm doing so well in life on paper. And yeah, that's when I also entered into a relationship with my now partner, Shane, that completely flipped my world upside down, like 180. And he really opened the door. And it wasn't like him being woke or anything that like taught me. It was just his presence in my life just showed me so much of my own shit, essentially, and showed me so much opportunity for growth that I hadn't even thought about. So here we are today, feeling like not even feeling like, I am a completely different person at this point. And I'm teaching and coaching and mentoring other women how to do the same for their life, for what feels good for them.
Yeah, there is so much that I want to pull from that. First off, my God, how much we have in common. I was primarily an only child as well until my sister came along. I was in the fifth grade, so we're 12 years in age difference. So when I think of my childhood, I think of myself as an only child, and also was raised by my father. It sounds like both of your parents were in the picture. My mom, not so much, but so I full full on like understand your struggle with like having the dad as your primary role model and mentor and parental guidance. And when you were speaking along the terms of being the good girl and learning to be the best little good girl possible, and parents forcing you to go to church and stuff just because like that was the thing to do, like literally fucking same. It's crazy to think that. And Yeah, I just, when you were speaking, it just like hit me. I'm like, God, I feel that. Like, I feel that little girl like trying to do the best she could in school and not wanting to do the wrong thing, and being friends with the right people, playing the right sports and doing the right activities, right? Like just doing everything to make parents proud. And then yeah, I feel like there just comes a time like when sex starts to come into play, there's like this little rebel side of us as women comes out, and maybe she's curious at first for a really long time, and maybe she's scared to come out, but I feel that at some point every woman is going to go through this sort of sexual awakening, as I like to call it.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I think it, especially as we get older, it's like there comes a time and around like 30 years old when we're like, hold the phone. Life does not need to be like this. This is ridiculous. What am I doing?
Yeah, just like realizing there's a different way. And I think it's beautiful for me to hear about your partner that came in, and it sounds like he was just this masculine pillar for you, and I'm sure a lot different than maybe how your father was and how you were raised. And so it showed you, like you said, this whole, just cracked you open. It showed you this whole other side of life and a whole nother way of life, whether and I'm sure it was like other than just sexual things. I'm sure in the communication and the structure and just different ways that and I'm making a lot of assumptions, so please tell me if I'm wrong in any way, but I'd love to hear about a little bit more about that. Like what was your experience when this relationship first started, and now that it's grown?
Yeah, so I mean, you are pretty much right on the nose with it. It's when we first met, right off the bat on our first date, we had a conversation. We had both been out of long-term relationships, so neither of us were looking for entering like to enter into anything long-term. But what was so freeing about meeting him was that on our first date, we had a conversation around, hey, why don't we just put everything on the table, show up exactly who we are, and if it doesn't work, it doesn't work, but I don't want to have to cater or put myself in a box and, show up in a certain way to impress you. Let's just be our full selves and we'll just ride it until it doesn't work. If it doesn't work, and if not, then we just keep going. Like, cool, great, sounds amazing. How revolutionary. So we did that. And I think that was really the foundation that opened my eyes to self expression in general. Really being able to have the freedom to explore new things. Another part of our relationship as it was building from the very get go, we started having conversations, just bigger philosophical conversations around polyamory. Now, both of us, neither had never been in a polyamorous arrangement. So I didn't even really know what it was, because nobody in my life practiced that. And for him, it was just like a point of interest, but he had never really done anything. So we just had really open conversations that were like, this doesn't have to lead anywhere, but why don't we just like talk about it? Why don't we just be open and curious and explore? And I'm like, ooh, that's exciting. That's like my favorite thing. So from there, it was like, well, why don't we try to, for us, it was never about polyamory. It was more so, why don't we open ourselves to new sexual experiences together? So it started with, having our first threesome and navigating that. And throughout the years, it's just evolved. It's evolved to its own thing. But yeah, I think really having the foundation of freedom to be your full self and not feeling that pressure to try to be validated in romantic partnership was huge. And also having having that camaraderie with your partner in being like, let's just like explore together and see where this takes us.
Mm. Yes, I love that. And you how what I'm taking from this is that like on that first date he gave you that platform for what sounds like the first time for you in a long time, that platform for you to use your voice, and you said like immediately you felt that curiosity and that excitement, like this is fun, I want to explore. And I'm sure it took you back a little bit to that little girl who wanted to explore and do things as well, but now it was like you had this new playground to play on, really. And yeah, this is exciting. So now, so not only did you enter a relationship that is nowhere near vanilla, it sounds like there is this whole like really this whole wide world, this whole menu of new experiences that you feel now confident to try. And you, as you've gone through this journey yourself, you now feel that you've found your voice and that you're able to use your voice, and especially when it comes to sexual experiences.
Yeah, totally. And I think the thing is too is like it's never perfect, right? And this kind of even goes back to being the good girl. We're always thinking like, okay, we want to find a situation that is just going to be the ultimate perfect situation, the ultimate perfect relationship, the ultimate perfect like communication. And this is a lifelong journey for everybody, for myself included. I have moments and months where I realize, oh, I've actually not been communicating this because I've been fearful subconsciously. And I come back to the remembrance of, oh, yeah, I get to just be myself and I get to be loved for who I am. But that also comes with self trust. I digress.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so just being able to like have that, I think is huge.
Yeah. I feel the same in our marriage. There's a two things that are coming up for me right now when I think of times that I've or we've created space for these types of conversations to happen. And the first one first one that's coming to mind anyways was we last year did a want will won't list together. I created my own version of a want will won't list together, and we did that. And so I remember sitting down and having a conversation, going through our list together, and being able to say like, I actually don't really care like when you kiss my neck. And he's like, what? Like that's like my go-to thing, right? I'm like, I know that you enjoy it, but just so you, it's like it's a you thing. It's not a me thing. It's doesn't really do anything for me specifically. And then it's just several other conversations like that. And I remember kind of going first and being the first one to say like, hey, this isn't really my jam. And then he's like, well, this and this, and so it was really great. And I think for so many people like that could have turned into a really nasty, hateful situation and conversation, but because we've had these again foundational moments and pillars in our relationship that we've prioritized, it made that very easy. And in most recent, we've kind of tapped more into like a spiritual realm of sexuality, and so getting into more like eye gazing related activities, and just the emotion and the connection that happens behind things like that when you're doing that eye gazing, you're in that moment. It's like laughter comes up, like giggles, squirming comes up at first, but when you really allow yourself to set into it, usually it brings tears to my eyes just to see like how much I love this person and admire this person, and to feel that in return. And then I
Mm.
just feel it opens up kind of the, I don't know, just like allows your throat chakra to open up a little bit more too. And when we share like, what's present for you, what are you feeling right now, what do you admire, what do you acknowledge, these different prompts that we'll go through. That's been other times where it's gave us this space to talk more.
Ugh, I love that so
But
much. And it's
yes.
like just hearing your story too. It's all with the intention of love. It's all rooted in love. It's not rooted in perpetuating cycles of old traumas or old beliefs or wounds. It's coming from that place of like, hey, I want to understand you, you want to understand
Mm.
me, and we want to have a good relationship.
Yeah. Yeah, that's my coach recently had said this. She's like, women are the leaders of love, and I follow that, and I take that to heart so much, because I ultimately do think that is so true. And so for the work that you're doing, that I'm doing, that so many of us sex coaches are doing, primarily working with women. Like, again, if we're following this mindset that women are the leaders of love, it's all that more important that we are prioritizing our sexual health, prioritizing our pleasure, and leading those pleasure filled lives every single day. And so I'd love to hear from you, what sort of activities, what sort of things do you do on a daily basis to make sure that pleasure really is of a top priority for you?
Yeah, that's a great question because I feel like we could have the whole podcast just talking about this, because there's so many elements to it. So I think first and foremost, from where you're at and being able to shift into living a pleasure-led life, it's really important to understand the ways that you, me, we have all been conditioned to believe that pleasure is bad in whatever form, or sinful, or that having too much pleasure is not a good thing. So having the awareness around the subconscious stories of sex and pleasure is huge. That's the foundation. And also having awareness, this is more of like a broader thing. It's not really sexual, but in your life, where are your energy leaks? Where are the places that you feel like are all these little tabs of things on your to-do list, or things that you haven't done or have been procrastinating on, that are actually leaking your energy every single day? Because when you have energy leaks, obviously your energy is drained, right? You're not in a good space. You're not letting the energy flow through your body. And if you're not letting that energy flow through, you're not feeling pleasure. You're not feeling good. You're feeling stressed, overwhelmed, anxious, all the things. So identifying those places is huge too. And from there, like once you have the awareness, once you have that base understanding of where you're at, why you've been doing what you've been doing, then you can really start to embrace a new way. And I think this kind of veers into getting into a stillness and getting into slowness and presence. Living a pleasure-led life, to me, doesn't mean that you are avoiding the opposite. It doesn't mean you're avoiding pain or discomfort. In fact, I would say or argue that living a pleasure-led life means you really embrace it all. You really embrace your emotions, the whole rainbow and the whole spectrum. You really lean into your pain, because the amount of pleasure that you can allow into your life is respective to the amount of pain that you're able to hold as well. So if you're constantly numbing yourself and you're constantly finding ways to distract the discomfort that's coming through in your life, it's that like instant gratification of like, okay, I don't want to look at that. I don't want to look at those things. But then you're staying sort of in this neutral zone, and it just continues to fester. And there, right then and there, you realize, oh yeah, I'm actually still not living in my pleasure. You can't live in pleasure if you don't address the pain. So having that, I think, is really important. And really sitting with it, sitting with the pain that comes up, sitting with the discomfort, communicating that to people. This is probably like a daily practice as well, is where in my relationships, whether it's your like romantic partner or your friends or your family, where am I not communicating my desires, my needs, my boundaries, which is another energy leak, lack of communication. So these are all like elements of really living a pleasure-led life, and they're all interconnected, and I think they all play such a huge role in allowing that receivership of pleasure in your life, but also viscerally, right? You have to be able to be willing to sit and open and cultivate safety in your body, cultivate that felt sense of, oh, okay, I can trust myself. I'm not in actual real danger here. Working through that is huge.
Mhm.
And from there, it's like, okay, now I can experience more of the magic that life actually has to offer.
Yeah. And you're like getting into the realm of breath work, or what I would consider breath work, like creating that safety, feeling through the emotions. My coach also recently gave me an emotion wheel so I can like just use better words than excited and nervous all the time. And it's, yeah, these little things have been so helpful. And so I really appreciate that you touched on that. And so you didn't just say, oh, I buy myself flowers every week, or I get my nails done, or I, coordinate and create cute outfits each day that make me feel good. Like, of course, those are all things too that we can do. But I just appreciate so much that you talked about the pain point first, actually, and going through that, because you're exactly right. It's not about pushing all of the shit down, right? Like, we have to work through that shit and shame, right, to be able to get to the other side of having more pleasure show up in our life. And yeah, there's another phrase that I've heard before. It's what how does it go? It's impossible to be sad. It's impossible to be mad if you're feeling ingratitude. It's possibly be anything, negative, if you're feeling in a place of gratitude. And so I try to do that as part of my daily practice as well, in bringing more pleasure to my life, and just honoring and loving what I have for myself, and not so much dwelling on the things that I don't yet have that I want to be in my life.
Yeah, yeah. I think um, another quote too, like going along with what you just said, is that where pleasure is present, shame is not. So
Mm-hmm.
when you are experiencing pleasure in your life, you're not thinking about how shameful it is or how wrong it is or whatever. Um, it just is. It
Mm-hmm.
just is. It's the same thing as alignment. I talk about pleasure and alignment a lot. Pleasure is your natural alignment,
Mm-hmm.
but when you're experiencing alignment, it's not a thing of like, oh, you don't have to question if you are or not in alignment. You just are,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and sometimes, as you said, like that shame is not going to show up right immediately when you are feeling pleasure, but for a lot of people, it's generally after, right? Like, shame is the aftermath of the pleasure in some ways. And can you speak a little bit, if we can jump into a little bit more of the religious side of this for you, or for people that you work with, how, yeah, I mean, I'll keep it simple. How did that look for you as you started navigating more into the sexual realm of things and poly and things like that? How did religion start to show up for you?
Yeah. So as I expressed, I grew up in a Christian, in the Christian faith. And for me, it was like, and I think this translates across the board. We are born into a family, or we're born into a faith, and we just follow it. And the programming, and I say that this is programming, everything in life is programming, right? So I don't say that with a negative connotation per se, but the programming of a religious upbringing is very, very, very strong. It has created wars. Like, people die for their religious beliefs. And so it's such a touchy subject, obviously, with that. There's like that famous saying that's like, at a party, you never talk about religion or politics. But I think it's really important to talk about it. I think it's really important to address these things, because the more you don't talk about them, the problems start to arise. And that's
Mhm.
really what ultimately happened in my personal life. Was I didn't really question um, the belief, my beliefs, and I was walking kind of in blind faith to some degree. But in my teachings, I was taught this is the way, this is the only way. And sure, go off and you can veer from the path, but if you die, and if you haven't accepted Jesus into your heart as your Lord and Savior, you're not going to go to heaven. And so, how does that cultivate an environment of love and expansion? It really doesn't at all, because you're sitting there thinking, like, oh my gosh, if I do anything bad, I'm going to go to hell. And so I remember when I lost my virginity when I was 16, well, I was 15, like 15 and a half. I felt so much shame and guilt. I was just like, I can't believe I did that. And like, I wanted to wait until marriage. And I tried to, work through it on my own, of just telling myself, like, it's okay because I really love him. And like, I hope God understands. And it just created so much like tension in my body. And I didn't go to see a therapist about that. I obviously didn't talk to my parents about that, because my parents thought I was a virgin until probably like 25. And so I really felt like I only had myself to work through it, which you can only do so much, especially at that age with the tools that you have. Um, so it really landed and sat within me for years after the fact. And then, after that, I continued to have sex with more my other boyfriends and whatever through time. But still, I had noticed that I was still carrying the shame of doing something that was wrong and sinful. And so when I entered into relationship with my current partner, was really when I started to question everything in my life. When I was going through that evaluation I talked about earlier, I really started thinking, like, okay, what am I actually believing? And also realizing that our beliefs are a choice. I was mind blown by the fact that our beliefs are actually a choice, and we can actually choose to believe anything we want to. So if I don't
Mhm.
believe that there's a hell, that I'm going to, like, be in a fiery pit for all of eternity for my sins, then how can that actually affect me, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, and the old me would have been like, well, you can choose to believe that, but the truth is the truth, right? Uh, and I'm like, okay, well, how do you know? How do you know for a fact? You've just been told too.
Mhm.
It's so
Exactly.
silly.
Have you died?
Yeah, have you died? Have you experienced it yourself?
Right.
Um, so having that shift radically shifted my whole life and my whole perspective on things. And since then, I still have much respect and love for my family and for the people in my life who are religious. I don't personally practice that anymore because I noticed that there were a lot of inconsistencies and opposite beliefs that I'm like, I'm choosing not to believe that. And I think that's harmful. Personally, I think it's harmful because it was harmful for my own life.
And when this all happened, like this switch for you happened at what age?
This really started happening around 24, 25.
Mm.
I'm 33 now.
Yeah.
And in that time, what's so funny is my parents, who hadn't been religious my whole life, started becoming very religious. And so they were like, yeah, you were the one. You sparked it for us. And I was like, oh, okay, well, I've moved over here now.
Yeah, you're like, how does that work? Like, no pun intended, but like, you're very much like Team Satan now, right? Like, exploring poly, threesomes, orgies, all that shit. Like, that is definitely not God's work.
Oh my gosh. But then I would argue that it actually is. So there you have
Yeah.
it.
Yes, I love that. Yeah, I'll be on that team too, for sure. I think that God wants us to experience as much pleasure as possible in life and live happy, fulfilled lives. So fun conversations that we get to have on podcasts.
Yeah. And just even in addition to that, like, I have come to believe that I feel like heaven and hell are states of being here on earth. So if you are constantly fearing, being reprimanded for your sins or for the things that are not okay, you're in a constant state of a living hell internally because you're battling yourself, you're making yourself wrong, you are shaming yourself, and then you're projecting that out into the world and judging other people, which is, of course, ironic and also hypocritical. And it just perpetuates that cycle. Versus if you choose to live a pleasure led life and you're living in a state of life gets to actually be good. And in divinity, like God would or spirit would want me to have pleasure in my life. Because why? When I'm in a state of pleasure, I'm also projecting that out into the world. I'm happy, I'm joyful, I'm spreading love. And in my eyes, love is only expansive. So if you're feeling like you're judging other people and causing division in your life, in your personal life, you're not actually living in love. And
Hmm.
hypocritically, you're not living a life that follows the tenets of said religion.
Yeah, that that is so true, and kind of tying this back into like the gratitude pieces. Like, if you are waking up and you are happy and elated that there is sun shining, for instance, right? Like, today is a day here in Michigan that the sun is not very shiny. It's very gloomy and dark, and so those days where it is sunny and shiny, like, I love those days. It just, they seem to flow so much better. But I'm taking the time to appreciate those things. And even on the days where it is gloomy and stuff like that, I'm taking the time to have gratitude for the fact that, like, I get to be cozy in my bed and that we have heat and I get to be snuggled up to my husband. Maybe we can sleep in a little bit longer because it's not sunny, blaring into our window and whatnot. So there's like different ways of going about it, but I'm gonna take this as my takeaway from this podcast. Like, you get to choose what you believe in and what beliefs you have. I think that that's so simplistic, but also just so, like, wow. you know yeah, that will definitely be my nugget from this.
I love that.
So what else, as we're wrapping up here, anything else that you want to talk about, share, tell the people listening today?
Well, I can share something that was another layer of understanding, an opened level of consciousness that I had the other day that, and this is going to sound like preface. This may sound simplistic, but I encourage you to really see the ways in your life where this may be manifesting and translating. Whether you're in a romantic partnership or with your friendships or whomever you have in your life, that you don't have to be on the same page all the time in order for it to work out. Like, you and your partner can have different interests, different things that you like and dislike, and you still be a really great fit and a really great couple. And that was something huge that I recognized for myself the other day, where just yet another layer of self expression where I felt like, oh, I can't really, you know, okay, I think we can go here on this podcast because this is
Yes,
the
please.
the environment. But so I personally love watching gay porn. To me, it's the hottest thing. It's so hot. My partner, not so much. He's straight and he's like, I have no desire to really watch that, but I do. And so the other night we were getting ready to have sex and he was like, put something on and like I'm gonna go make us dessert for foreplay and I'll be back. And so I started, just looking up some things that I found interesting, and click, 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 found myself on a video that was just super hot. And I had to pause before he even came back upstairs. So I was like, I was gonna climax if you like. I was there
Don't
already.
leave me too long.
And he was like, oh, okay, cool. Well, keep playing it. And I was like, no, 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 I don't want to do that. Like, I I don't I feel uncomfortable having it on knowing that you don't like it.
Mm,
And he was like, why do you feel uncomfortable by that? And I was like, well, I just want us to both be able to connect. And if I'm doing this, I'm just like feeling your energy of not liking it. And so I don't want to do it. And so it turned into this huge conversation around, where and in what ways are we suppressing our own expression when it comes to our romantic partnership, out of feeling like, well, they don't like it, so I don't want to subject them to what I like. Um, and really going like, how can I still explore for myself, explore the things that I do like, and how can they explore the things that they like, and it not be a point of like a wedge in our intimacy, because ultimately what is the wedge is the feeling like you can't express yourself to your partner in those deep
mhm,
vulnerable moments.
mhm,
So yeah, coming back to let yourself just be and flow, and there's always ways to make it work.
mhm.
Yeah. Yeah, so when we ended up having sex, he was like, keep watching the video. So I had the video facing me, and he like watched his own thing, and we were just like having so much fun, like still connecting, still talking to each other. It wasn't like we were in our own worlds. It was just the
Mhm,
fact that like I was, having visual stimulation in this way, he was having visual stimulation in that way, and we could jam on it and be like, what do you find hot about this? What do you find hot about that? Like, still being curious about each other's interests.
mhm. Yeah.
And not ironically, I've said that like a million times in this podcast, but coincidentally, that did bring us closer.
Mhm.
So there you have it.
Yes, you tapping into something that you like and wanted created that space to have that conversation. And it's so funny because I just know that people listening to this are like, not everybody, but some people are like, oh my god, how awkward. They were going to have sex, you had porn on, and now you're in this like deep conversation around like sex. Like, what a mood killer. But it's like, for people like us that like get like, we thrive on this shit, like we're constantly having interactions and conversations like this, and I think that's what makes the relationship all the more stronger, and each of you having a strong relationship to yourself, to your pleasure, to your partner. I mean, so many things. But and that's, I think, a good reminder for people listening too. It's like sex doesn't have to look a certain way. Sex is not just P and V. Sex doesn't have to include this or not include this. It's like you make it what you want to make it, and there are a million different ways to make it even better.
Yeah. Yeah. And having conversations like that mixed in, I would say actually amplifies the turn on, because so much of that turn on is mental stimulation and mental engagement. It's not like caveman, like, oh, this is, I'm in the mood, quote unquote, and we're just getting it on.
Yeah.
It's so much more than that.
Yes. Like, ooh, penis is hard. Stick in vagina. Yeah, like it's oh, this was so good. And for 2023, I'm adding in a new segment to the show to just kind of a little fun thing to end with. So, in 3 words, how would you explain your first sexual experience?
Wow, great question. 3 words. First sexual experience. Uncomfortable, curious, all right.
Just all right. I love that. And in 3 words, how would you describe your last sexual experience?
Heart opening, mind blowing, divine.
Mm. And that, my friends, is what this type of work can fucking do for you and how it can transform your sex life. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much, Elan, for coming on the show today. How can people find you if they're wanting to connect with you?
Yeah, so I am mainly on Instagram, and I'm sure you'll have it in the show notes at
Mhm.
elan.zelenka. I also have a TikTok with the same username at elan.zelenka, and I have all my links on there on those platforms.
Perfect. We'll definitely link them. Thank you again so much for coming on today. This was wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to today's show. If you loved it, be sure to subscribe so that you never miss an episode. And if you really fucking loved it, make sure to tag me on social media at the Rachel Main. I'll see you next week.